Welcome back. Let's talk about politics. I'm bringing our guest, the political analyst, Mr. Jide Ojo, joins us. Mr. Ojo, thank you so much for coming on the program.
My pleasure, Geoffrey. Good morning.
Before we jump into, controversial court cases and the many expectations that people have as to the Supreme Court judgment, I understand they are sitting by two to deliver judgment on ADC and PDP. Before we get to the big ones, let's start with, they're not really small ones, but let's begin with Lagos politics. So there were conversations around whether or not there's going to be consensus or no consensus, but as it looks now, Obafemi Hamzat is winning this race already from the APC because he has the blessing of the president now. He's had the blessing of Governor Sanwo-Olu. The GAC have also endorsed him. But we see people like Jan Dor, as well as I think Mr. Adjustor Samuel, have also picked up their form. And the way it works, what the law says in Section 87 of Section 87.1 of the Electoral Act, consensus by law means that aspirants will actually pick their form and be interested in the race. And then if they, for whatever negotiation happens, they are no longer interested in the race, they will have a written consent saying they are withdrawing their intention to run, and they will endorse, if we can go back to subsection 1, endorse the candidate that is a consensus candidate. But what we see is not really consensus in that. It's consensus by grammar, not by the legal term. So perhaps Lagos wants to do something different. But what do you make of Lagos? Let's start with Lagos.
Thank you again, Geoffrey. What's happening and what will most likely play out in many places is orchestrated anointment or orchestrated selection. This section 87 sub 1 that you have put up on the screen, yes, it's there, but you have forgotten one thing. There will be a screening committee, and it is the screening committee that will now determine who qualifies to go to the field. That's the primary itself. And my own experience from several states where this consensus has been orchestrated or stage managed is that they will use the screening committee to now weed out those candidates or those aspirants that are not in the good books of the powers that be. We saw that in Ekiti, we saw that in Osun, we saw that even in Edo, we saw it in Ondo, and these are even states where off-cycle governorship election have taken place before the electoral 2026. So beware of what happens during the screening. For instance, in Ekiti, we learned that the screening committee, or that there is an electoral guideline of APC, let me put it that way. In the electoral guidelines, you are supposed to get certain number of endorsement from across the wards in that state. So if you fail to get the needed endorsement, then you don't qualify, you'll be disqualified by the screening committee. And that's what has been weaponized. So you find out that those who are not the preferred aspirant will suffer some technical knockout at that screening stage. And then they will do it in such a way that only one or two very unpopular featherweight aspirant will now be allowed to go and contest with the main aspirant that have been previously endorsed. So on the floor, when it gets to the day of convention, or the day of the primary, you will now see this very unpopular or weak aspirant stepping down for the main aspirant, and then you will say, "Oh, this is democracy." So it's an orchestrated, predetermined nomination exercise. And I stand to be corrected. As we approach the days of the primary, you will see what will play out. Everybody will go and buy form, no problem. Go and buy form, then you face the screening committee, the electoral guidelines, and I think channels and other media stations should get a copy of the electoral guidelines of APC, because that's what they have referred to in Ekiti and in Osun, that, you know, our guideline says you have to get X number of endorsement across all the wards, across all the local government or thereabout. And then if you fail to get those endorsements, then you are technically knocked out. In Osun, I think about 9 aspirants were screened out. In Ekiti, about 5 or 6, I'm not too sure now the exact figure, but it's the same template that have been used thus far to weed out those who want to test their popularity by going to pick a nomination form. So it's a wait and see scenario. And of course, those who are also testing their popularity, they are doing it for a reason. Some of them want us to be negotiated with. So you go and then say, okay, you know what, step down for our adopted aspirant. And then they say, I've spent 200 million on my consultation and electoral campaigns. If you can settle that, then I will step down. And we see this time and again. It's not just in 2026. It has been like that. And some people, it's not to even be induced. They want to stand in a pole position to get nominated either as deputy governor or, in the event of the main candidate winning, getting the commissionership slot or appointment, federal or state appointment. So it's all about intrigues, political intrigues that is at play. But we wait to see how this all pan out.
Well, let's head to neighboring Ogun State now, where a similar scenario seems to be playing out. I'm sure you've been following events there. The governor, an incumbent, has entered the race and has, in fact, secured the endorsement of major stakeholders in Ogun East, including the Governor's Advisory Council. But the serving senator is also interested in the race. And we heard the governor speak to his political opponent yesterday, saying that he leaves him to his conscience, that he supported him, but former governor and current senator Benga Daniel, yes, is repaying him badly. What do you predict to play out eventually if the consensus doesn't go around to all who should endorse the governor? And I'm talking about the 7 senators' own supporters now who want to see him return.
Bukola, it's very clear. That Section 87 has said there are 2 modes of primaries. Failure to reach a consensus means you go for direct primaries. I don't know why Nigerian political class are apprehensive of election. In many instances, from time past, and I've been a student of politics, I've been working in this stuff for over 27 years. I have seen that time and again, there is always an attempt to have an anointed aspirant. And anyone who wants to stand in the way of that anointed aspirant gets crushed, technical knockout and all of that. In the case of Ogun, for the governorship, I think nobody else has picked nomination from thus far against Yayi. That's Senator Olamilekan Adeola Yayi. But for the Ogun East Senatorial seat, which is being dragged between the incumbent governor, Prince Dapo Abiodun, and former governor, Engineer Benga Daniel, you could see that that's what actually played out in a sense in Bayelsa, where Seriake Dixon, I think, is from the same senatorial district with Governor Doyediri. And people were like, you are in your second tenure, why do you want to defect to APC? The man knew that if he does not defect, he will be in the same party with his purported godfather or a leader. And that will mean tussle between the two. And that is what was playing out in Ogun. assuming that Engineer Gbenga Daniel is in PDP or remains in PDP or has defected to ADC, it will have been coast clear for Governor Dapo Abiodun. But the man, and you could see that there has been a frosty relationship between Gbenga Daniel and Dapo Abiodun prior to even this electoral contestation. I think there were issues around property destruction and all of that, which has really made their relationship to go sour. And so this is the political season where both of them now wants to test their popularity. So what eventually will happen is that if either of the two could not reach a consensus on who should go, then there will be direct primaries. And somebody asked yesterday on social media, what is that with Lagos? We have never seen a former governor of Lagos moving from Alausa to Senate, from Governor Bola Tinubu then to Governor Babajide Raji Fashola to Ambode, down to Governor Sanwo-Olu. We have not heard that Sanwo-Olu is going to Senate. So there seems to be contented with just having 8 years. But in several other states, once a governor serves out 8 years, he wants to go to the Senate. And that's what we rock the boat in several states, where the governor is going to the Senate, and whoever is on that seat want to do a pushback. And that's why you see alignment and realignment of forces where people are defecting, because they know it's going to be an onslaught against their godfather if they remain in the same party with him.
So, well, I really appreciate the point you just made, and I'm wondering how much value have they added when they leave the governorship seat and go to the Senate? It is really tough because most of them get to the Senate with that, oh, your excellency mindset, right? So they sit there and they still remember, oh, I'm a governor, or at least I was a governor. So maybe we should begin to look into that, allow people who are ready to do the work to actually go there, or who have that energy. But Mr. Ojo, listening to you speak, I realize that, you know, the criteria, or the set of criteria for selecting candidates at the party level is way different from the criteria that the people who will vote them into power or not will then use to select them. It's almost like light and day. So for the candidates, the criteria include money, just how much political popularity are they able to maneuver themselves politically, then more money, then how they're able to do all of the, compromising, then more money even. So money is a major criteria here. And when they eventually get into office, or at least when they're vying for that position, people try to listen to the policies they have. But sadly, they got there based on just how much money, how they're able to convince people, how they're able to oil that political will. So do we count that as just normal party mechanism, or is there a way we can do better with that selection process?
Let me be sincere with you. Again, without being immodest, I've been on this trajectory, working in the area of elections and democracy and good governance for at least 27 years. Money alone does not determine electoral victory. Money alone does not. Even in the much maligned 2023 general elections, 7 sitting governors lost their bid to go to Senate after 8 years in power. 7. They were seated there, they have state resources, there are billions at their disposal, but people said, we are not going to vote you. You know, it happened, if I in Enugu, the one that left before Alex Oti in Abia, the governor in Simon Lalong in Plateau, several of them, 7, including the one in Cross River, this professor with highfalutin English, budget naming. All of them, 7 that I counted, lost their bid to win their senatorial election. And it's not the first time that happened. Remember, even in 2023, Governor Matawale lost his bid for re-election in Zamfara. Then in Oyo in 2019, after Governor Abiola Ajimobi who for the first time was the only governor thus far since 1976 to win the election in Oyo. You know, Yorubas will say, Oyo people will say, Ibadan kì í sìn yàn lẹ́ẹ̀mejì. You know, you don't re-elect your governor, you know, as well as, despite the so-called laudable performance of Governor Bola Ige in 1979, he didn't win re-election. Omololu Olunloyo just stayed like 3 months. The one that came in 1990, all of them lost their re-election except Ajimobi. And that's why people of Oyo State named him Pegunle or Kosheleri. But it happened that after his tour of duty, after 8 years, as a sitting governor, Abiola Ajimobi lost his bid to come to Senate. He was a former senator in the aborted Third Republic, I guess, or was it in the, I don't know when he was senator, but he was senator before he became governor. And he wanted to return to Senate after 8 years. Somebody who could break the jinx of re-election could not now win election into Senate. It tells you how political savvy electorate are. So with all the monies in the CBN or in World Bank, you may still lose your election. That's why sometimes billionaires, with all their resources thrown around, people will collect the money, but we refuse to vote for them. So it's a portfolio of variables for you to win election. You must be popular, you must have the resources, you must have pedigree, you must also be aligned with maybe the party at the center. If you belong to the ruling party, you must not be seen to have offended the powers that be. For instance, the assumption in Oyo then was that Abiola Ajimobi had a running battle with some of the traditional rulers in Oyo State, like the late Alaafin of Oyo, Balamide Adeyemi,
get the point.
and Olubadan of Ibadan.
If I can come in quickly,
community and all of that.
Right,
So,
Mr. Ojo, if I can come in quickly, pardon me. So my point is this: they emerge as candidates at the party level based on the factors I quoted, which is money. And in fact, your points actually confirm that, because a lot of these people emerged as the candidates of their party because of the huge war chest they have. But when they then went before the people obviously don't look at that. So I'm saying that at the party level, so that we can have the best candidate, is there a way we can ensure that it is the same factors that the people look at that would influence the candidate emerging, and not just the person with the biggest wallet or vault, as the case may be? So that's the point I'm making, the mismatch.
Okay. Now, there is no mismatch. You see, the reason why many of them emerge as candidates is because of the earlier point I made, that many parties are afraid of contest. That's why they choose the easier path. Remember, part of the reason they remove indirect primary, why the National Assembly removed indirect primary, was because it was prone to corruption. People buy delegates, they warehouse delegates, they pay for their logistics and all of that. So the belief now is that with consensus and direct primaries, the issue of money politics at the party primary level will create a more level playing field, that it will not be determined by how much you have. But what I've told you in the first question Geoffrey asked me about the landmines that are now placed through the electoral guideline of some of the parties, where they now say, okay, for you to contest as a governor, you must get certain number of endorsement. I don't know, I think that's the right word, endorsement or whatever, from across the world. Now, the same people, the electoral guidelines get an endorsement across the world, but surreptitiously behind the scene, those who you go to for endorsement will be threatened that if you endorse this aspirant, you are done for. And we see that in a couple of states. This is a research product I'm sharing with you. That behind the scene, the law will say, the electoral guidelines of the party will say, you have to get endorsement, but when the chips are down, they will make it impossible for you to get that number of endorsement that will now qualify you to stand as an aspirant during the primary. And the alternative to that consensus arrangement is to go for direct primaries. Now, the guidelines also find kind of, I've not read the guideline, let me not be making the wrong assumption here. But the guideline, I will assume that it's not all party members that will also be allowed in the direct primary. What they usually will do is to also pre-qualify those who can vote in direct primaries. For instance, they may say, a party may say, you must be a financial member of the party for the last 1 year, or you must not be owing your party dues for you to be able to vote at the party primaries, or that you must have been in the party for a minimum of 6 months. Meanwhile, my own study, my own research have shown that most of the party members don't pay dues. They don't pay dues. So by the time you now say you must be a financial member for you to be able to vote at the direct primaries, or you must have joined the party for minimum of 1 year or 6 months, you have also placed certain hurdles. And then you now find out that the membership register that may be used for that direct primary is actually doctored. Doctored in the sense that, because I've also heard on the field, some people saying their names were removed from the register. I'm talking of party register now, not INEC register. So don't get me wrong. So what I'm saying is that the law is for the enemy, the exemption is for your friends. While the issue of party primaries has been heavily monetized, and that is part of the reason that National Assembly removed direct primaries, because that one is a delegate system and people can easily procure, purchased, induced just few hundred of people. Now that they say it's direct primaries on consensus, I've also told you the landmine that it's not just picking the form, you also must get certain number of endorsements across the wards, across the local government for you to qualify. And then those who want to work against your interests will make sure that those who you want to go to get those endorsements are cowed, threatened to not to endorse you. So they make it technically impossible for you to qualify to contest. Or if you go to direct primary will tell you, okay, you have to have been in this party for 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. If you have not been in the party for that length of time, then you cannot vote. Or that you must be a financial member and you must have paid your dues as I went due. Now, how many people will be left to vote in that kind of direct primary? So,
Mr. Jide,
when they want to be serious, they know how to put those hurdles, those landmines, in order to get a predetermined outcome.
I think I was speaking with Kunle Lawal of Electoral College yesterday, and he said members who pay their dues in political parties, he was even giving 500,000 as a number he has. So let me even add another 500,000. So that can tell you when it comes to payment of dues, how they are lagging. But I want to double down on what you raised, if you can answer in 2 minutes, because we're totally out of time, on something that you mentioned about, perhaps you're talking about the APC, that you must consult with a certain number of persons for you to be able to have opportunity to vie for office. But let's look at what the law says as to how you can qualify, disqualify, nominate someone in section 85 of the Electoral Act, if my producer can put it up, because we have to look at what the law says in all of these things so that we're properly guided as Nigerians who are. Yes, so this is the section I want you to look at, Mr. Ojo, whether the APC or any other party that has to do with consultation before you can qualify for running is anything to stand by in terms of the law. A political party shall not impose nomination, qualification, or disqualification criteria, measures, or conditions on any aspirant or candidate for any election in its constitution, guidelines, rules for nomination of candidates for elections, except as prescribed by those sections of the Constitution, 65, 66, they go on 103 and all of that. And what those sections of the Constitution talk about for disqualification has to do with age, citizenship, educational qualification, criminal records, secret court membership is very clear. Consultation of stakeholders is not listed. Mr. Ojo, if you can answer in 1.5 minutes.
I'm not unaware, Geoffrey, I'm not unaware of what that Section 85 prescribed. What I'm telling you is the real politic. Okay, take the case of Osho APC. When about 13 aspirants came up, or is it 12 or 11 aspirants, and about 9 were disqualified. On what basis would someone like Iyole Omisore, Senator, former National Secretary of APC, not be able to get endorsement to run as governor? Babajide Omowolare was former member of Lagos State House of Assembly before moving to Osun State to become a senator of the in Osun State. And these heavyweights were all screened out on the basis that they did not meet certain criteria. And so these are well-grounded people who have contested elections, who have held political offices, and you find out that even, I think there was a deputy governor among those who were disqualified. And you wonder, how did this happen? That you now said about 9 out of 11 people were not qualified. They said because the electoral guideline says you must get certain number of people to endorse you. That also happened in Ekiti. By and large, you know this issue of, it's an internal affairs of political parties. Section 86 now, which is now in contention, Section 83 sub 2, that whatever political parties do is their internal affairs. And that's why I've queried that issue of internal affairs. Because otherwise, these party leaders are oligarchs. They can do and undo. The moment, and this issue of our internal affairs will play out in most of the parties, if not all, during this party nomination exercise, starting with the primaries, where they will say, even if you participate in the primaries, we still hold the right to field or nominate whoever the party feels will be a winnable candidate. Because one of the other criteria they use, is that they will tell you that you do not have what it takes to win for the party. And they may even withdraw, they may disqualify you on the ground that you do not have the clout to win the election for the party. So, and when the party, when they now go to court and the court, they tell the court, oh, it's our internal affairs, you are not supposed to meddle in it. How then do you resolve the conundrum? So it's all about laws and practice. And I'm telling you what is on the field, what is practiced on the field is different from what is written in the law says.
I understand. I understand perfectly. Sometimes what is written in the books is different from what is practiced, but it's our job to bring to the fore what is written in the books. Politicians can choose to do whatever they want to do. Is their kettle of fish, the court will decide. But as you said, the plethora of judgment, Tumbitu versus INEC, as Kelly said, defined what internal affairs of a party is membership and leadership. If the common decimal, the eventual dispute has to do with membership and leadership, the courts have no business. But we'll see lower court finding ways to assume jurisdiction, and then we're having all of this crisis. Mr. Jide, thank you for your insight, as always, for coming on the program. He's a public affairs and political affairs analyst. Thank you, sir, for coming.
My pleasure.